Jars of the Damned Segment 1. The Boy Who Bought a Grave in a Jar. The first jar I ever bought cost me $1 and the worst dream of my life. My mom says the fair will teach you 3 things if you let it. How to sell, how to smile, and how to keep your feet moving when your heart wants to sit down. She runs a kettle corn stand by the livestock barns, and we've been chasing the carnival circuit since I was 9. Texas to Oklahoma to Louisiana and back. I know the smell of diesel like some kids know fresh-cut grass. I know how to smile at a stranger and tell him he looks like he needs the large bag. I know how to keep my feet moving. But that night the ground felt like it wanted to move me. It was late, after the ride should have gone quiet, and the drunks should have found their trucks. The sky above Fair Park had that brown-orange Dallas glow, like a city pretending it never sleeps. The Ferris wheel was still turning, red lights bleeding down its spokes. Big Tex had gone silent, but sometimes his dead speakers coughed a static that sounded like a man trying to remember his name. Mom sent me to swap propane tanks. I cut behind the barns by the rodeo pen and passed a stall I didn't recognize. Hand-lettered sign, crooked mystery jars. $1, 100 jars lined 2 shelves, lit from below by a crate of Christmas lights. The liquid inside them wasn't water. The jars caught the glow like they were full of melted moon. The man behind the table was older than my grandfather and looked like the scarecrows we left in fields we couldn't afford to harvest. Hat pulled low, beard yellowed where tobacco lives, eyes the color of winter water. His name tag said Ezekiel in Sharpie. $1 buys a piece of luck, he said. I snorted. Luck for who? For the jar, he said, and smiled a slice of a smile. Well, pick one. I should have kept walking. I should have remembered what my cousin said about fairground side hustles. If they can't tell you what's in the box is you. But I was 16 and bored, and the man's voice scraped like a song you hear once and hum for a week. I picked a jar with glitter caught in the liquid like somebody shook up a galaxy. Inside at the bottom lay a single white tooth. "Aw, sick," I said, but I handed him $1 anyway. He palmed the bill and tapped the lid twice with a fingernail. "Number 6, he said. "That's a good one. Belonged to a singer." "A singer who what? Forgot to pay?" Ezekiel laughed like he'd meant to cough and changed his mind. "Donations," he said. "We all give to the fair." There was a slip of paper taped to the side of my jar, hand-numbered number 06, and stamped with a little circled star and 3 vertical bars. I'd seen that mark around, the Blackwood emblem. On banners, on staff shirts. On checks Mom never cashed because the maintenance fees meant we'd owe the fair by the end of the season. "Got any with, like, baseball cards?" I asked. "Sometimes," he said. "Sometimes we get better." I carried the jar back like it could spill because something about the liquid made me think if it hit my skin, it would go right into me. Back at the stand, Mom looked up, squinted, and frowned. "Lex, what is that?" "A joke," I said. "It's not funny," she said, and made the sign of the cross quick and small, like flicking ash. "Toss it." I meant to. I set the jar under the counter next to a crate of syrup we use when the sugar clumps. The number show 6 stared up like an eye through glass. The night slowed, the way it does when the rides keep spinning and the money keeps walking. Mom sent me to dump the oil. I came back to an empty booth. "Mom?" I called. No answer. The kettle hissed faintly. Our tip jar sat on the counter, open like a mouth waiting for a coin that forgot to fall. "Ma?" I shouted louder. The fair swallowed the sound. Somewhere a generator coughed and caught. A laugh went sharp and then flat. I jogged around the stall and saw the shape of a man standing 2 lengths away, hat low, hands in pockets. "Ezekiel?" I said because it was easier than saying anything else. He lifted his head slow. It wasn't Ezekiel. He looked like nothing, not in a mean way. He looked exactly like the kind of man you forget on purpose. Ball cap, boots, a face you could draw out of $1's worth of geometry. When he smiled, it bent only on one side. "Alex," he said, calm as a doctor. "Don't yell. How do you—" He glanced at the jar under our counter and shrugged like, "I know things." I stepped toward him, and he didn't flinch. When I got close enough to smell his breath, it smelled like nothing, too. "Where's my mom?" "She's with friends," he said. "In English?" He tipped his head. "She's with people who know how to keep her safe." "You took her?" I said, and anger rose in my chest like something that had been waiting there for a long time. You took my mom? He didn't shake his head exactly. He let the idea slide off him. We rearranged her evening. She'll be back before the first coffee truck opens. So what do you want from me? You already bought it, he said, nodding toward Narration. I'm here to take delivery. I grabbed the jar. The tooth bumped the glass and made a small sound with too much meaning. You can't have anything I paid for, I said. That's law. It is law, he agreed. We wrote it. Bring the jar. He turned and walked toward the barns like we had somewhere to be. I should have run, but you don't run when a man talks like he's in charge of your legs. I followed, jar clutched, heart running ahead. We crossed into a part of the fair I didn't know. Old exhibition buildings with names nobody uses, doors chained and windows boarded. He stepped into one like it might bite, then led me past empty display cases and a poster about Texas wheat from 1987. At the back, a maintenance hatch sat flush with the floor. He kicked it with the heel of his boot, and it popped open. Go on, he said. No, I said. Okay, he said, and stepped down into the dark first. A light came on below, dim and gold. Mind your head, I went down. The air smelled like high school biology. The tunnel was concrete and old enough to host a ghost. The walls sweated. The sounds of the fair above us came through like hello from a dream. He led me left, then right, then into a room the size of a classroom. Shelves lined the walls, jars stacked in rows, each numbered, the liquid inside making the light bend in tired shapes. A folding table stood in the middle with a scale, a cheap laptop, and a ledger thick enough to break a man's foot. Ezekiel sat at the table, eyes wet with light. He nodded like a church deacon. Evening, Lex. You said you sold luck, I snapped. I did, he said. And you bought some? For who? For whoever paid, he said, and slid the ledger around so I could see. Names weren't names. They were numbers and initials and dollar amounts, with commas too big for a fairground clerk. We're not killers, Ezekiel said, like he'd practiced it. We're sorters. We keep what the fair wants kept. We send what the fair wants sent. The fair wants teeth? My voice cracked on teeth, and I hated myself for it. Markers, the other man said. The nothing man, the one without a smell. Tokens, like the old country. You keep a piece so you know what you owe. You owe who? I asked. Family, he said, and the word sounded like it didn't mean the right thing. He glanced at my jar. Open it. Like hell? He looked at me like he wanted to smile and had forgotten how. Please, he said, and the please didn't sound like a man. It sounded like a machine that had learned manners. I unscrewed the lid. The smell that came out wasn't rot. It was sweet, like the syrup we use when the sugar clumps. Too sweet, the kind of sweet that makes your tongue feel like it owes your teeth rent. Pour, he said. I turned the jar over the scale. The liquid slid slow. The tooth dropped with a soft clink. The gold line jumped and settled. Ezekiel wrote the number in the ledger. It's not for you, the man said. It's for the jars. I don't speak crazy, I said. He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw the thing under his collar. Edge of a tattoo, fresh, a circled star with 3 vertical bars. Blackwood's mark. I swallowed. You work for Blackwood. He blinked like I'd said the tide works for the moon. We work for the fair. Where's my mom? I asked again. He nodded at a door at the far end of the room, steel with a keypad. Down that hall, watching a video. She'll sign what she needs to sign when it's over. I moved toward the door. He didn't block me. That scared me more than if he'd shoved me. The keypad lit under my fingers, 5 digits I didn't know how to guess. The man tilted his head toward the ledger, and Ezekiel sighed and spun it around again. On the inside cover, written in neat block print, sat 5 numbers, birthdays. JH0713K. B Doll 1402. AM 1106. Mine. I froze. You, how? We keep what we keep, Ezekiel said. I typed 1106 first. The lock clicked like it had been always waiting. The hall beyond was colder, the way hospitals keep air as a promise. 3 doors, each with a small square window. I looked through the first. Inside, a boy I'd never seen slept with his mouth open. A bandage crossed his chest, and numbers were written on his wrist with a Sharpie. O+, 57 kilos. The second room held a girl my age, staring at me like she'd already known my name since morning. The third room held Mom. She sat in a chair facing a TV. The footage showed families at the fair, smiling, living like an advertisement for a future that forgot to happen. A woman spoke in a voice that belonged to after-school specials. Blackwood House, hope for runaways. A man I recognized from banners, Josiah Blackwood, appeared on screen and said, "Family takes care of family." Mom's hands were folded like prayer in her lap. Her eyes didn't blink. A piece of paper lay on the table beside her, custody transfer and work release. "Ma," I said, and my voice turned small fast. She turned her head slow, blinked. "Lex?" I ran to her. The paper crinkled under my knee. She blinked like she'd been underwater and just found air. "Where?" she said. "Where did you—" The door behind us clicked. Ezekiel stood with his hat in his hands. The nothing man stood with his hands in his pockets. He nodded at the paper. "It's better this way." "Keeps you moving. The fair loves a hard worker." "Like hell," I said again, because it was the only spell I knew. He looked at me with something like patience. "We can call it a different name if you want." Mom's fingers found mine and squeezed, like pain had a handle. "We're leaving," she said, and stood like she'd remembered legs. Now, the man didn't step aside. He glanced at the camera in the corner of the room, and then at the keypad, and then at me. "You bought a jar," he said. "You opened it. That means, you know, knowing means belonging." "I belong to my mother," I said. Ezekiel's face crumpled like paper in the rain. "I didn't have a choice, boy." "Yeah," I said. "You did," the man sighed, like wind through wire. "We all do. We just don't like the ones we pick." From down the hall, a low hum started. Generators waking, or something that wanted to be a generator. The lights dimmed and brightened again. Somewhere above, the Ferris wheel groaned the way metal groans when it dreams. "Time," the man said. "For what?" I asked. "For you to learn how the jars work." He nodded toward the table where we'd poured Dosro 6. Ezekiel turned the laptop, hit a key. A map bloomed on the screen, dots moving through Dallas streets. One dot pulsed where we stood. Another glowed near the beer tents, another at the edge of the livestock barns. The legend said donor, product, escort, like it was labeling food groups. "The liquid," the man said. "Micro-trackers. You carry it, the fair carries you." My stomach flipped like a coin with two bad sides. "How many people—" Ezekiel's voice shrank. "Enough to call it a business," Mom whispered. "We're going." She looked at the door and then at me, and then at the jar, as if it might jump up and bite. "Lex, please." I took her hand. We moved. The man let us pass again, and that was worse, because it meant he didn't think we were leaving. Not really. We hit the tunnel and ran. The echo of our steps sounded like someone else chasing us, and maybe that's a metaphor, or maybe it was Jared Kane's crew. I don't know. We climbed the ladder into the exhibition hall, pushed the hatch aside, and spilled onto dusty tile like the fair had spit us out. The door at the front of the hall opened before we reached it. A man in a midnight suit stood there with his hands behind his back, smiled polite as a church usher. Blade silver hair, burned leather face. Josiah Blackwood. "Good evening," he said. "I've been looking forward to meeting you, Alex." I squeezed Mom's hand until the bones asked me to stop. "We're not staying." "Of course not," he said pleasantly. "You're moving." "That's what my people do." He glanced down at the jar stain spreading dark on my shirt where the liquid had splashed. "And now I can keep you very safe." He stepped aside, and the air behind him changed. It smelled like winter and bleach. "That way leads home," he said, smiling like he'd practiced on a mirror. "And by home, I mean work." Mom's breath hitched. "Don't," she whispered. I looked past Blackwood. At the end of the corridor, through glass doors, I saw the midway. The Ferris wheel turned slow, like a clock that forgot the numbers. Big Tex's shadow stood with its hands open like invitation or surrender. Blackwood's voice softened. "Family, Alex, we take care of our own." A shape moved behind him, cap, boots, nothing eyes. The nothing man, the whisperer, tilted his head and lifted two fingers in a little wave. My skin learned a new meaning for cold. I pulled Mom towards the opposite door, the emergency exit, but a bar of light across the floor showed a shadow waiting there too. Flame tattoos, licking a forearm. A laugh like a broken bottle. Jared Kane. "Got your number, kid," he said. "All those X, right?" "Let's see how lucky you are." The emergency sign flickered. The sound of generators rose like something waking. In the tile at our feet, a red dot, my dot, pulsed brighter. Somewhere the fair's speakers crackled, and a voice that had died already said, "Cheerful as Sunday. Howdy, folks." The lights went out. Segment 2, the tunnels that breathe. When the lights died, the fair exhaled. You could feel it. Air moving where no air should move, like the whole place was alive and deciding who got to stay inside it. Mom's fingers crushed mine. "Lex," she whispered. "I'm here," I said, though the dark made a liar out of me. Somewhere behind us a match hissed to life. The whisperer's face appeared for an instant. Orange flicker, eyes blacker than the gap between rides. Then the match went out. I yanked Mom toward the service corridor. Her shoes slapped tile. My heart tried to keep tempo. The hall bent left into emergency red glow, just enough to show the steel hatch we'd climbed through earlier. It was still open. I didn't think, just shoved her down the ladder first. Boot steps followed, slow, deliberate, 2 sets. Kane and the whisperer hunting without hurry. I dropped after Mom, pulled the hatch shut, and twisted the locking bar. Metal screamed. A shotgun blast blew through it. Pellets sparked across the rungs. I nearly lost my grip, slid the last 10 feet, landed hard on concrete. Mom hit the tunnel floor beside me. "Lex, I'm fine." Lie. My shoulder burned like the jar liquid was under my skin. We ran. The tunnel curved deeper, the walls sweating that same syrupy smell from before, sweet and wrong. I looked down and saw faint red dots winking along the floor every few yards, like breadcrumbs made of light. Trackers, the same kind Hollis had seen on the ranger's map. "They can follow us," I said. "Then we'll go where they can't." She veered into a side shaft I hadn't noticed. Smaller, half-collapsed. I followed on hands and knees, the ceiling brushing my back. Pipes overhead ticked with the heat of distant fryers. Behind us came the clang of boots on steel and Jared Kane's drawl echoing off the walls. "Come on, boy. Fair's still open for business." The shaft ended in a grated door. I kicked until the hinges gave. We spilled into a larger space. Storage room, maybe. Shelves of crates stamped Carnival Supply-XO. Except when I cracked one open, it wasn't popcorn oil. It was ice packs wrapped around sealed plastic bags. Inside each bag floated something shaped like meat. Mom turned away and gagged. "Dear God." Labels read O plus 58 kilom, A child, TX Fair Lot 7. "Organ transport," I said, voice shaking. "They're freezing the donations." Something thudded above us, footsteps on a catwalk. A flashlight beam sliced the dark. We ducked behind a crate. Ezekiel's voice drifted down from the shadows. "Lex, don't make this worse." "You still got time to be useful," Mom whispered. He helped them. "He's scared," I said. "That's not help, that's survival." "Same thing," she muttered. The flashlight swung closer. I grabbed one of the jars off a shelf, dumped 19 murky green fluid, and threw it. It shattered near Ezekiel's boots. Whatever was inside hissed like acid. He yelped, stumbled, dropped the light. It spun across the floor, catching the outline of stairs at the far side. We ran for them. The stairwell went up instead of out, narrow and steep, until we hit a rusted door marked Delivery Bay C. I shoved it open. The night air hit like baptism, hot, oily, honest. We were behind the midway again, somewhere near the barns. Generators growled in the distance. Helicopters thudded farther off, Rangers maybe. The Ferris wheel burned on the horizon, its skeleton still glowing from the earlier fire. Between us and freedom stretched a maze of trailers and vendor trucks. "Which way?" I asked. Mom pointed east. "Parking lot. We can cut through." A truck engine roared to life between the rows. Headlights flared. The black SUV rolled out, grill shining like a predator's grin. Behind the wheel sat Josiah Blackwood himself, calm as ever, one hand resting on the wheel like it was a pulpit. He rolled the window down. "Evening, Montoyas." Mom stepped in front of me. "You stay away from my son." Blackwood's smile never reached his eyes. "I'm offering him a future. You too. We don't kill families. We employ them. Fair wage, safe housing, steady purpose." "You traffic people," I said. He sighed. "Words, words. We harvest need. Every soul that comes through those gates trades something. You traded curiosity." He glanced toward the tracker glow pulsing faintly through my shirt. "And curiosity always glows red before it burns out." The SUV door opened. The whisperer stepped out, shotgun slung lazy, the red dot of his sight brushing my chest. "Come now," he murmured. "Don't make family sad." Something behind them moved, headlights cutting a new angle. A Ranger SUV burst through the alley, siren whooping once before shutting off. Hollis's voice boomed, "Hands where I can see 'em." Blackwood didn't flinch. "Detective? You're trespassing on private property. You're under federal investigation," Hollis said. "Step out of the vehicle." Blackwood looked amused. "I own the vehicle. I own the dirt under it. But, of course, you'll do what you must." He tapped the roof once. The Whisperer fired, not at us, but at the air above. A fuel line from a generator split. Flames snaked up instantly, painting the world orange. Hollis swore and ducked as debris rained. Mom yanked me backward between two vending trucks. "Run." We sprinted through smoke. The air tasted of diesel and cotton candy burned black. Hollis shouted orders somewhere behind. Gunfire cracked, and the Whisperer's silhouette danced through the haze, unhurried, patient. We ducked into a petting zoo tent half collapsed from heat. The smell of straw and animal fear still hung thick. Mom sagged against a fence post, coughing. "Can you keep going?" I asked. She nodded, eyes streaming. "Just get out." "No way." I turned. The tent flap lifted. Ezekiel stumbled in, face streaked with soot, eyes wide. "Lex," he gasped. "They're sealing the exits. You've got to go down." "Down where?" "The service pit. Under the goat pens. It leads to the rail line. You follow it. You can reach the Trinity River tunnels." Mom hesitated. "Why are you helping us now?" He looked ruined. "Because I've been selling ghosts for 20 years, and tonight they all came back for their money." A shadow crossed the doorway, boots, slow, deliberate. The Whisperer again. Ezekiel drew a revolver from inside his coat, old and shaking in his hand. "Go," he hissed. The first blast took him in the chest. He didn't even fall right away. He just looked surprised that it hurt. Then he crumpled sideways into straw. I grabbed Mom's arm and dropped through the open trap Ezekiel had pointed to. We slid down a ramp of damp concrete into cold darkness. The tunnel below smelled of river water and rust. Faint light filtered through grates overhead. I heard the fair dying above us, sirens, shouts, something collapsing. Mom limped but kept moving. "He's not human," she said between breaths. "That man." His eyes, I know. The tunnel forked. On one wall, someone had spray-painted an arrow and a word. Home. Under it, another word half scrubbed away. Hospital. That's where they send the jars, I realized. The charity hospital. Mom squeezed my hand. Then that's where we go. We followed the arrow. The air grew colder. Ahead, a metal door stood half open, marked Blackwood Foundation. Medical shipments. Inside waited rows of crates identical to the ones we'd seen earlier, all labeled with blood types. The hum of refrigeration filled the room like prayer. I pried open one crate. Instead of organs, this one held hard drives, each tagged Donor Archive. Names scrolled across a nearby monitor. Hundreds, maybe thousands. J.H. KBYAM LM. The list kept updating. "They're digitizing people," Mom whispered. "Turning them into inventory." I scrolled to the bottom. A new line flashed red AM, active tracker, my initials. A map popped up beside it, our dot moving across the screen leading straight to this room. Another dot followed 30 feet behind. "He's coming," I said. Mom grabbed a crowbar from a rack. "Then we finish it here." The door creaked. The Whisperer stepped in, silhouette framed by the tunnel glow. Smoke rolled off his jacket like fog. He carried Ezekiel's revolver, now casual. "Brave," he murmured. "But the fair doesn't like loose ends." I held up one of the drives. "These are your trophies, right?" "The real jars." He tilted his head. "Records. Proof of gratitude." Let's see what gratitude looks like when it burns. I hurled the drive into the refrigeration fan. Metal screamed, sparks blossomed. The other drives caught, one by one, flickering like fireflies. The Whisperer lunged. Mom swung the crowbar, caught his arm. The gun went off, deafening in the small room. She fell but rolled clear. I slammed the door controls. The hydraulics hissed. He was inside, pounding, voice rising, not yelling, whispering hard enough to flay skin. "You can't kill the fair." "You're the fair." The locks clanged shut. I grabbed Mom and pulled her toward the secondary tunnel. Behind us, the refrigeration unit exploded, cold, turning instantly to steam. The blast chased us down the corridor like winter trying to eat summer. We burst out through a drainage grate onto the river embankment. Sirens wailed downtown. Above, helicopters cut searchlights through smoke. Mom dropped to her knees, shaking. "Is he dead?" "Maybe," I said. "But he'll come back. They always come back. Something clattered on the concrete beside us. A small glass shard. I looked closer. It was the neck of a jar, label half burned. 406. I picked it up, and inside the broken curve, tiny glowing dots still pulsed, tracking nothing, maybe tracking me. Mom took my hand. "We find the Rangers," she said. "We tell them everything." I looked downriver, where the fair's glow still painted the water red. "Yeah," I said. "We tell them. But first, we make sure nobody else gets sold." Segment 3. The Blackwood Hospital. Morning came gray and grudging, like the city didn't want to wake up. Mom and I spent it hiding beneath the Commerce Street Bridge, while the Trinity River dragged light downstream. Every few minutes, helicopters drifted overhead, engines thudding like slow hearts. I'd wrap my wrist in duct tape to cover the faint red glow of the tracker, still pulsing under my skin. We waited until the sirens moved north before climbing out. The skyline looked scraped raw, but one building gleamed too bright to belong. The Blackwood Children's Hospital, white glass and gold trim, rising from the east side like a promise that lied. "That's where the jars end up," I said. Mom nodded, face pale but fierce. "Then that's where we end it." The inside man, they didn't expect survivors to walk in through the front door. By noon, the lobby buzzed with reporters hungry for tragedy at the Texas State Fair. The guards were busy escorting them out, so no one looked twice at a vendor's kid pushing a supply cart. Mom wore a volunteer vest she'd stolen from a laundromat bin. I wore exhaustion like a disguise. We rolled the cart through a hallway lined with smiling murals, children flying kites, doctors with halos of sunlight. Somewhere above, machines beeped a rhythm too calm for truth. I caught the scent first, bleach, then copper. Behind a staff-only door, a man's voice murmured into a phone, "Yes, the shipment's arrived. 2 live donors, 1 adolescent, 1 adult female. Label AM and LM." I froze. "Alex Montoya, Lucia Montoya." Mom's hand found my arm. Her lips moved silently. "We get proof first." The door clicked open from inside. A janitor stepped out, humming, pushing an empty mop bucket. He looked up and blinked. It took me a heartbeat to recognize him. Detective Hollis, beard shaved, uniform borrowed. "You're supposed to be halfway to Oklahoma," he muttered. "Couldn't leave," I said. "They have my name on a list," he sighed, glancing up and down the hall. Figures. Ty Reeves and that girl you met, Kaylee, are downstairs with Valdez. We're setting up a warrant, but we need evidence that ties this hospital to Blackwood's fair operation. You got anything?" I pulled the glass shard from my pocket. The faint tracker light still blinked. "Plenty." Hollis's eyes widened. "Where'd you get that?" "From hell," I said. "Want a tour?" The lower floors. We slipped into the elevator together, Hollis, Mom, me. He pressed B3, the button no one labeled. The doors shut. Music too cheerful to survive down there. When they opened, the smell changed. Metal, ammonia, and something faintly sweet like rotting fruit. Fluorescent lights hummed over a corridor of white doors. Each door had a barcode reader and a small plaque. Donor processing. Tissue archive, logistics. Valdez waited by a side alcove, wearing scrubs and a fake ID. Ty stood beside him, still bruised but upright, one hand resting protectively on Kaylee's shoulder. She looked thinner, older in a way fear ages people. "Nice of you to join the circus," Valdez said quietly. "Brought popcorn," I said, showing him the shard. He whistled low. "That'll light up their system like Christmas. Let's plug it in." We ducked into a monitoring room packed with screens. Hollis slid the shard into a USB slot. Instantly the monitors filled with scrolling code, then a logo. Blackwood Biomedical Solutions, serving humanity since 1897. A list popped up. Shipment logs, coordinates, donor IDs. Every missing kid, every runaway, every fair vendor's accident. Thousands. "Got them," Valdez breathed. "Holy God, The lights cut. Every monitor went black except one. A single video window opened. Josiah Blackwood's face appeared, calm and colorless. "Detective Hollis, Mr. Valdez, children, you keep coming back to my house uninvited." Hollis leaned close to the mic. "It stops today." Blackwood's smile didn't move. "The fair never stops. It travels." Behind him the camera panned. Rows of operating tables, each with a glass jar at the head, numbers glowing. Doctors in white moved like ghosts. "Tonight," Blackwood said, "we open a new branch in Houston. But you—" He leaned closer, eyes pale silver. You'll headline the donation drive. The feed cut out. A siren started to wail. Security lights strobed red. Busted, Valdez muttered. They know we're here. Then we make noise, Hollis said, drawing his weapon. Tylex, you two take the stairwell to the loading bay. Kaylee, stay with them. Get those drives out. He tossed me a portable SSD. Copy everything you can? I nodded, palms slick. What about you? Buying time, Hollis said, and vanished down the corridor with Valdez. The operating wing we ran. Doors slammed open along the hall, guards shouting. Ty shot the keypad on one door. We ducked inside. The room beyond wasn't a lab, it was a gallery. Hundreds of jars sat on illuminated shelves, each with a floating sliver of tissue suspended in pale liquid. Labels glowed. Sertso 6 AM, Sodrafen KB, 12EGH, Emigres Harlan. Kaylee pressed a hand to her mouth. That's the little girl from the news. Ty's jaw clenched. Then the bastards took her again. No, I said softly, pointing to the label's color. Red tag means recovered. She's alive. Someone pulled her out. Kaylee looked at Ty. Her dad. We didn't have time to feel relief. A voice came over the intercom, smooth, endless. The Whisperer. Level 3 containment breach. Children, return to your rooms. The sound made my teeth ache. Kaylee grabbed my wrist. We moved. We found the stairwell and clattered down 2 flights, following the map Hollis had shown. Ahead, daylight shimmered through a half-open loading bay. A semi-truck waited, engine idling. Its cargo doors gaped, full of crates stamped Blackwood Foundation, donation freight. Ty jumped into the cab, found the key still in. Get in! We piled into the trailer instead, hiding behind the crates. The truck lurched forward. Through a gap, we saw security vehicles swarming behind us. Alarms echoed across the complex. Then, from the radio above the driver's seat, a voice purred, "The Whisperers again." You think you're leaving? But the fair is in the blood now. The wheel jerked by itself. The truck veered. Kaylee screamed. Ty wrestled it back toward the road. He's remote linking the GPS. I crawled forward, yanked the radio cord out. Static screamed, then silence. Ty gunned the accelerator. We burst through the perimeter gate. Ahead, the Dallas skyline broke through smoke. Behind, the hospital's top floors blossomed into fire as Hollis's team triggered whatever charges they'd rigged. The sound rolled across the river like thunder. The bridge we hit, the Margaret Hunt Bridge, doing 60. The city looked unreal in the orange glow, half dawn, half apocalypse. Kaylee clutched the seat, eyes wide. Where now? She asked. Ty checked the mirror. We keep heading south. A figure stepped into the road. Just stepped, calm, as the truck's headlights caught him. Black suit, silver hair, Josiah Blackwood untouched by ash, smiling like a man late to dinner. Brake! Mom shouted. Ty slammed both feet down. Tires screamed. The truck fishtailed, hit the guardrail, and shuddered to a stop inches from the man. Blackwood raised a small device in one hand. Looked like a remote, or maybe a detonator. You've taken what belongs to the fair, he said. And the fair always takes back. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. Then the jars in the trailer began to glow, red lines pulsing through the liquid like veins. One cracked, then another. Steam hissed out, reeking of metal and burnt sugar. I grabbed the SSD drive and dove out the side door. Mom and Kaylee followed. Ty jumped last, dragging a fuel can from the truck bed. Get clear, he yelled. He lobbed the can back through the open door and fired a single shot. The explosion lifted the trailer in a fireball. Shockwave punched the air from my lungs. Blackwood vanished in flame, or maybe just stepped into it. Hard to tell. When the ringing faded, the bridge was empty. Only the circled star emblem burned on the asphalt, glowing white-hot before cooling to black. Aftermath dawn finally broke clean. Rangers cordoned off the ruins within the hour. Hollis found us sitting on the curb, wrapped in emergency blankets. He looked like a man carved out of smoke, soot in his hair, eyes hollow but alive. Valdez, I asked. He shook his head once. Didn't make it. But he got the main servers wiped. Mom touched his arm. We have the backup. She held out the SSD. Everything. He took it carefully. Then maybe we've got enough to bury Blackwood for good. Kaylee looked toward the skyline where the hospital used to stand. He's not dead, Hollis didn't argue. No, but he's bleeding. Ty reached into his jacket, pulled out a crumpled carnival ticket, seat 14, edges singed. Fair's moving to Houston next week. That's where he'll run. Hollis pocketed the ticket. Then that's where we go. I glanced down at my wrist. The red glow had finally faded, replaced by a faint scar shaped like a star. I couldn't tell if it was healing or marking me. Will they ever stop? I asked. Hollis looked toward the river. Not till someone turns off the lights. He stood, stretched, and nodded south. Pack up, folks. The carnival's not done. That night, when the city went quiet, I dreamed of jars again. Rows and rows, stretching into forever, each one humming with a heart that wasn't quite dead. Somewhere in the dark, a voice whispered, close as breath, family takes care of family. I woke with the taste of bleach on my tongue and the sound of distant laughter that might have been the wind or the fair setting up in another town.